Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the Den of the Drake. Other dragons hoard gold, while I hoard internet cringe. So before we begin today's story, I have a confession to make. I have never played a D&D module in my entire life. Every time I've been a DM or a player, it's been in a homebrewed world with homebrewed characters. So whenever I'm reading a story and a character like Dritz Doerden shows up, I have no idea who they are. But there is one officially licensed D&D character that I can recognize from a mile away. That man, if you can even call him a man, is Strahd von Zarovich. Even someone who neglects the modules like I do knows all about Curse of Strahd. After all, it's considered to be one of the best D&D modules for a reason. Barovia and Ravenloft's atmosphere, characters, and story are something to behold. Plus, the vampire Strahd himself is a total badass, despite being a bit of a simp. I am very excited to be able to play or run the module myself one day. Who knows, maybe we'll do it on Dice Goblins. But regardless, it always makes me feel saddened when so many of these horror stories happen to involve Curse of Strahd. I mean, I guess when you have such a popular module, you're bound to attract some, undesirable players. In today's story, our protagonist's own opportunity to DM for Curse of Strahd is ruined by a player with so many red flags that OP needs to worry about more than just Strahd's fangs being stabbed into his neck. Now, without any further delay, let's go ahead and dive right into the horrifying world of r/RPG horror stories. Enjoy. This story is titled, Maybe the real Curse of Strahd was the friends we made along the way. A few months ago, I decided that I wanted to try running Curse of Strahd for my friends. Some vague spoilers ahead for the module, be warned. My friends, whom I call Wizard, Rogue, and Bard, have been my friends since high school, and are probably the people I am closest to in the entire world. Rogue had been playing D&D with me for years and had plenty of experience. Bard had only played once or twice, but made up for a lack of knowledge of rules and class abilities with his enthusiasm for the game and willingness to roleplay. Wizard had also only played a few times, but from what I had seen with them in the past, they had been something of a murder hobo with a reluctance to roleplay. Despite this, that was my friend, and I wanted to have fun with them, so I hoped that they could learn. Problems began at the very beginning. While running Death House in the first session, Wizard wandered off from the others in the basement and got ambushed by ghouls. With Con as his dump stat, they quickly dropped to 0 HP and failed their death saves just as the party caught up to them. Wizard immediately proceeded to call me a bitch for killing off their character when I knew they didn't want to die. They sulked in their chair for the rest of combat, flicking a pocket knife open and closed while glaring at me. Now, I had actually prepared for the possibility of PC death this session, and had the character suddenly awaken with full health and a dark gift, something I had planned to have happen later, but moved up based in no small part on the fact that there was a very angry person with a knife and a significant amount of muscle sitting across the table from me. The session continued without much further incident, aside from Wizard complaining that the combat was too hard. So, as stupid as it sounds, I actually didn't see what was wrong with this at first. I mean, I come from a pretty rural part of the United States. So, growing up, most of the population in my hometown consisted of big dudes carrying pocket knives. Just because that was the culture, and you never knew when you were going to need to whittle a stick or gut a fish at a moment's notice. And in my friend group, calling someone a bitch is a term of endearment. But then I started thinking, and I removed my own redneck biases from the situation, and oh my god, we are not even halfway through the story, and this dude is trying to intimidate someone who he considers to be his friend with what could potentially be a deadly weapon. Okay, so this should go without saying, but brandishing a weapon of any kind at the D&D table should really start to ring some alarm bells, and immediately the thought of kicking the players should come to mind. Nobody wants to get stitches over the fact that the wizard got killed when they stubbed their toe. The most ironic part about all of this is that the guy who doesn't want to die is playing the class that is the most likely to die at lower levels. A low-level wizard has the same amount of staying power as LeBron James in the fourth quarter. A few sessions later, Strahd himself made his first appearance. He was charming and outwardly cordial to the party at first, but the general creepiness towards Irina soon became apparent. I had known ahead of time that this would be a rather intense campaign, with heavy themes, and had warned the players beforehand, asking them what specifically they would want warnings for, and if they had any hard lines on things they did not want included. I had compiled a list of trigger warnings for the players ahead of time to make sure I didn't bring up any sensitive topics without warning. However, Wizard was supremely uncomfortable with the predatory vibes that Strahd gave off, and his reciprocation of Bard's awkward flirting. They told the group chat that they didn't want to see Strahd, the primary antagonist and the man on the cover of the book, and accused us of sexualizing a predator for making jokes about Bard seducing villains. I told him that while we could tone down the horny Bard jokes, I couldn't remove the main character or the themes of entitlement towards women, and they accepted this ruling begrudgingly. Throughout all of this, they did not roleplay or interact much at all with the characters or the setting, and complained that they felt no investment in any of it. Wanting my friends to have all the fun, I specifically tried giving plot hooks and new NPCs tailored to their backstory to encourage them to be more involved. But instead, the wizard changed to complaining that there was too much going on and that it was hard to focus. The wizard also accused me of favoring the other two players, and to be honest, I did. They got to do more, if only because I would like to follow that mysterious hooded figure leads to more magical items or new lore being found than I am going to avoid doing everything in this entire town because it's none of my business and does not explicitly tell me how to kill Strahd. Bard and Rogue asked NPCs questions and treated things seriously, as opposed to the wizard burning down a building that they knew contained kidnapped children, just because it would also inconvenience the villains that had made it their base, and rationalizing it with a non-committal, they would have died anyways. Now, I knew that they weren't interested in the game, and that they only ever seemed to be bored or uncomfortable. I told them that they were free to go at any time, that we would still hang out outside of D&D, and that they didn't have to do something that they didn't want to. This only made them angry. They accused me of trying to force them to quit, of ignoring their complaints and pushing them away when I knew that they had abandonment issues. With the victim card successfully played, I dropped the issue. So here is something that I see more often than I would like to, and that is players expecting only the DM to carry the story. Now, I know a lot of it comes from simply not knowing how D&D is supposed to work, and that's totally fine. I can imagine it's kinda hard to switch from relatively linear games, such as The Witcher or The Elder Scrolls, to a game that offers true freedom. Now, I know I've said this before, but D&D is a team game, and I'm about to unveil a revelation that will shock everyone. The DM is a part of that team too. I mean, sure, they can make all these complicated dungeons and complex NPCs, but when the DM gives you a plot hook to save an old woman's cat from a tree, the least you can do is save the fucking cat from the tree. Okay, look, all hyperbole aside, the DM-player relationship goes two ways. The DM facilitates the world and the players interact with it. That's the whole game. Without one side of that partnership doing its job, the entire game fails. So be kind to your DM and throw them a bone. Hell, there's probably some magic items in it for you if you do. Things continued like this for a few months. Wizard never had anything good to say about the games, my DMing, or anything really. They ultimately texted me to ask that I speed things up to get to the boss battle, because all the lore and side quests were just getting in the way. I told him that this was not a video game and that they could not just speedrun the campaign, and that I wouldn't cut the story to satisfy one player. I told them that this was incredibly taxing on my mental health, and this is where everything went to shit. Wizard told Rogue and Bard separately that the game was emotionally draining me, and that they were concerned about my mental health, suggesting that I have some sort of unhealthy attachment to the campaign, and that they were worried. Without waiting for my input, they persuaded Rogue that I was an anxious wreck, and that the game had to end for my own well-being. The two of them agreed to quit, and since I can't really continue the campaign with only one player, they basically canceled my game for me. I only knew any of this happened because Bard had a feeling that Wizard wasn't telling the full story, and decided to send me the screenshots. All of this happened last night, and I am typing this with a recovering hangover, a sense of betrayal by my oldest friend, and 15 unopened texts demanding that I text them back and apologize for ignoring them. I don't want to end this friendship after so long, but I really don't know what I'm supposed to do now. Any attempt at confrontation would end in them playing the victim or getting mad at me, and I don't think I can really move past this like nothing happened. I spent months on this, and spent hours a day working on session outlines, NPC notes, and painting miniatures. They took my main creative outlet, something that I genuinely loved, and destroyed it. I don't know what I can do. End of story. Gather around, everyone. The word of the day is entitlement. The wizard felt entitled to way too many things. They felt entitled to special treatment, entitled to easier combat, entitled to being a victim, entitled to censorship because they were offended. I mean, hell, this person straight up wanted Strahd to be removed from Curse of Strahd. I mean, of course, dealing with someone with this level of entitlement is a curse all its own. Listen, OP, if for some reason you're able to see this, and everything you wrote in this story is the honest-to-God truth, this person is not your friend. If you genuinely think that this person was trying to make you fear for your own safety over something as inconsequential as a dead D&D character, you need to distance yourself from them immediately. Or else you may end up getting cursed with something far worse than anything Strahd can offer. Now before we go, let's take a look at this week's Gallery of the Drake. This week's fan art is done by viewer Rave Monster, and depicts a much more cuddly version of myself. I mean, look at this dude, he looks like he'd be right at home in a Disney movie. Okay, so I want you all to be honest with me. At the rate my channel is growing, when do you all think I'm gonna be added to Kingdom Hearts? Alright, Sora, I'm gonna need you, the rat, the goose, and the mentally disabled dog to go to r/rpghorrorstories and bring me all the cringe. Only then can I say that you're based enough to beat Sephiroth. Ho ho ho! Thank you again, Rave Monster, for submitting your art. If you want to see your artwork featured in Gallery of the Drake, be sure to send it to the email in my About section. I love receiving and reviewing fan art, so of course it means the world to me that I can make content that inspires artists like you to create artwork like this. With the story over and artwork displayed, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the video here. I would like to thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you next time in the Den of the Drake.